Hey horror fans, welcome back to Room 237. Coming at you with another zombie film review, and this time it is George Romero's Diary of the Dead. I know my last review was Night of the Living Dead. Even though these are uploaded out of order, the zombie playlist and the George Romero playlist, they'll all be in order. Diary of the Dead came out in 2007. This was his fifth film in his Dead series, and I haven't seen this in probably 8 years. It's been a long time since I've seen this. First time I saw it, I hated it. The first few times I saw it, I hated it. Watching it now, I don't hate it, but I still have a bunch of problems with it. 4 stars, a masterpiece, said by Nick DiGilio from WGN Radio Chicago. To each their own, but I strongly disagree. Now, George Romero's previous film, 2005's Land of the Dead, which I'll get to next, this was Romero's big Hollywood film, which Romero's not a Hollywood guy. He likes low-budget, under-the-radar kind of movies. So we figured the only way to get back from that is to go ultra cheap and even go found footage. Yes, this is a found footage film. And I'm not the biggest fan of found footage movies. It kind of depends. I mean, Cannibal Holocaust, I love, but then again, that's half and half. Blair Witch, I love to death. You make fun of me if you want. I think Blair Witch, as far as start to finish found footage, is the best one. I like Wreck 2. I even like Quarantine. Most found footage I don't like, especially since they're ghost movies. Zombie Diaries, I think, sucks ass. I don't own that, so I won't be reviewing it. Diary of the Dead, also because I think part of it was, because Romero always has something to say about society. There's always social commentary in his films. And I think this one is about, social media. YouTube is referenced. There's, deals with MySpace. Anyone remembers MySpace? I do. And also just like sensationalism, news. News is bullshit. And just that kind of thing. He also went back, and I don't know if it's the same first day as Night of the Living Dead. Because obviously that was in the 60s. This has cell phones, camcorders, MySpace, YouTube. So maybe it's a whole start to a new trilogy or new films. But yes, this is the first day of the zombie apocalypse, or it starts with the first day. It's a group of film students at the University of Pittsburgh. Of course, it's Pittsburgh. They're out in the woods filming a horror movie. Girl in a dress being chased by a guy dressed as a mummy. And the director is a kid named Jason. Of course, nothing goes right. They hear a news story about dead coming back to life. Which actually, the very first shot is news. There's someone on the news because, some guy killed his whole family. They're wheeling the bodies out, and the bodies come to life and attack. That news story is now in the news, and then they hear it, so some people leave, the rest stay together, they get in an RV, and it's pretty much them just on the road. And this kid, Jason, will not stop filming. Now, I know in a lot of found footage movies, people get aggravated with the filmmaker, like, would you put the camera down? Like, if you remember the season 12 two-parter of South Park, pandemic, Randy won't put down the camcorder. Reference to Cloverfield. This makes sense. He has no reason to film. I mean, Cannibal Holocaust, they were making a documentary, Blair Witch. Yeah, Heather was kind of doing it for sanity purposes, but they also used it for light so they could see at night. He's filming just because he wants to show people the truth of what's going on out there. Because you find out that the news is a bunch of shit. They're sort of sugarcoating it. But then there's a point where he's uploading it to MySpace. And he's talking about how he got 72,000 hits in 8 minutes. So it's kind of, you don't really know. But, people are always giving him shit for filming, like his girlfriend. And this other guy, Scott, Tony, his name's Tony. He's played by Sean Roberts, who was the first one to die in Land of the Dead. He was also, this is going way back, what's it called, The Perfect School, that two-parter of Goosebumps when he was a kid. I actually like him in this movie. He's sort of the one to just be like, don't be an asshole. And I mean, there's not much to the movie. It's just them going from point A to point B, and there's always zombies around. Like they go to a hospital because they're driving. This is in the very beginning. They're driving. There's a wreck. There's a cop. That's a zombie. The girl that's driving, she's kind of panicking. So they pull over, and I think she shoots herself, but she's still alive. So they go to a hospital, and of course there's zombies there. There are a couple unique deaths, but there's one fatal flaw that really brings this movie down. Above all, and I'll get to that. So there's like a nurse, so the lead girl takes defibrillators and fries her eyes out. And they shoot a couple more zombies. They're having problems with the RV, so they stop off at this farm owned by an Amish guy who's deaf. So he's Amish, he can't hear, and he has no technology. Then they end up, or before that, they end up at this one place where these National Guards guys or whatever have sort of all black guys. It's actually kind of the point. They say, we stay here because now we have the power. For the first time, we have the power. He even says something like, because they left, those without suntans. And it's kind of funny because it shows on the news, riots and stuff. All these black guys, they help them out. They give them guns, give them food, give them water, give them gas. They're hesitant, but they're persuaded. But then later on, there's all these white guys in the military who just steal all their shit. And in fact, it's those military guys who are our leads. Not in that film. That guy is in this, but he turns into a zombie. In the next one, Survival of the Dead, which that movie I'm pretty sure is still a piece of shit. I haven't seen that in a long time either. So yeah, the real military guys steal all their shit, and then the ones that sort of, went rogue and are only in it for themselves, their own little compound, they help them out. And eventually, they get to the lead girl's house. Her family's dead. They have a professor who's English, I think, and he's always drunk, and he's always given these sort of kind of pretentious statements. I can't remember any examples right now. So they move on, which the guy that played the mummy in the beginning when they were actually filming their film, he's like, fuck this, I'm going back to my place, and one girl goes with him. And it's funny because when they go to his house, He's still in his mummy suit. It's been like 2 days. And he's acting all weird. His house is like Wayne fucking Manor. Huge, beautiful mansion. And he starts acting all weird and crazy. And he, you see that he's put like the staff of his mansion, his parents, and the girl that went with him in the pool. And actually, I'll just start saying it right now. The fatal flaw is the CGI. CGI in a George A. Romero zombie film, of the Dead film, is sacrilegious. It's blasphemy. It's as blasphemous as CGI in an Evil Dead film. Which, yes, Ash vs. Evil Dead did have some CGI, but I loved Ash vs. Evil Dead. This is all CGI. I mean, you get some practical effects, but it's when, like, zombies have, like, a mouthful of flesh or something. There's no guts or intestines or meat or flesh or brains or anything. It's all fucking... Like, when the girl has the defibrillator and the eyes blow out, that's all CGI. When they're at that little compound with all the black guys before they get helped out, one of their guys, they say he has a bad heart and he dies and he's wandering around. He corners one of our lead characters and he picks up a jar just to break it over his head. It was hydrofluoric acid, and it just slowly like melts down until the brain is nothing and he dies. Which was neat. That's kind of a cool, slow death for a zombie. But it's all CGI. And then when that mummy kid brings them out to the pool, the whole pool is CGI. Like, yeah. I understand why they did it, because I just watched one of the special features. I get why they did it. Because when you're doing found footage, you have to do it as it happens. It's harder to get the gags, but I mean, even Cannibal Holocaust was... I know it's a different kind of found footage film, but... So, and I guess they like did practical effects, but when they transferred it over to the final film, it just looks like shitty CGI. Like, it's like people standing in an empty pool and then CGI water over it. Turns out the mummy kid got bit. And this is what's funny, because Quarantine does the same thing. Earlier when they're in the hospital, a guy gets bit. And then it's like hours later, they've driven away, he's dead. And his girlfriend doesn't want him to be shot. She's like, can we just wait and see what happens? So they imply that more time has passed. But here, the mummy kid, because a lot of times it switches over to his security cameras. Because the whole thing is the girlfriend is narrating and editing it. Which I'll get to why that kind of throws off the found footage. So the mummy kid goes inside, falls over and dies, and then he just gets right back up. It's like, it's all over the place. Like, how fast or slow do you turn into a fucking zombie? Whenever the script's convenient, I guess. And I don't mean to badmouth George Romero. May he rest in peace. He is a legend. I do respect him very, very much. And I don't hate this movie anymore. I don't. I found myself interested in it, but just the CGI. And then, of course, the mummy kid, the one girl. Well, actually, it's kind of funny because when he turns into a zombie, he starts going after the girl in the dress from the beginning. Because in the beginning, when they're filming their actual movie, the director, Jason, gets mad because the mummy wants to chase her. He's like, no, dead things move slow. And she's like, oh, you just want me to fall over and grab my dress and my tits fall out? Well, now that he's an actual zombie, he's walking slow and she's running. And he's like, see, I told you dead things move slow. And of course, he grabs her tits fall out for a second. And but they don't. She hits him in the head, and then it shows this one kid who took a shower in the house. He's now in the room. It didn't show. It's like she hits him in the head out in the woods behind the house, and then he's in this room. It ends with our survivors going into the panic room. And it's kind of funny because the Jason guy who's obsessed with filming, he dies. And I'm not saying spoiler alert, because even the whole time she's narrating, she refers to him in the past tense. You know, Jason wanted this movie to whatever. Jason was always this. You know, always is, was, has. So it's like, okay, if she's referring to him that way, it's... So after he dies, that's when she's all about filming. It has to get everything. She says she edited everything. But they added music. Like, Zombie Diaries has music. Like, a soundtrack. And that's what... Found footage you're supposed to believe is real, which, of course, this isn't Blair Witch. You know you're going to see it. It's a movie. But, you know, you can kind of get lost in it and kind of feel real. But the music kind of throws me off, kind of takes me out of it. Even though, you know, she says, I edited all this together. I made this. There's another part where... And also, when it shows other things that he's filmed or uploaded, it's like he's filming it off a screen. So it'd be like if I just took my phone and recorded like this. But it looks the same quality as what we're watching. So it looks like it's going on with our characters. Like these, some sort of military people, like hazmat military. They go in this one room, find this family of zombies. This old couple sort of locked them up in there because they didn't want to kill them because they're family. And they're just like, fuck you, fuck them, kill them. And then one guy's like, don't shoot him in the head. Shoot him in the heart, let him fucking wake up. Then he shoots himself. Then the last thing, as she's narrating it, it's like the last thing Jason uploaded was footage of these redneck guys who are target practicing on zombies. They're tied to trees. Then there's this one zombie girl who's tied by her hair to a branch. And when they shoot her, like, here, down is gone. And she's given this narration, like, you know, do we deserve to be saved? And she has, like, a little blood tear. CGI, of course. So, yeah, it's kind of pretentious. I get where George Romero was going with it, with social media and like sensationalism and stuff. I didn't hate it this time. As a movie, I'm like, okay, it's like George Romero doing found footage, it's zombies, and you know, yeah, the guy's annoying how he's filming everything, but the characters around him I like that guy Tony I liked. He was the relatable one. But the fucking CGI was just horrendous in this. It was pitiful. It was sad. I mean, I guess just because of the kind of film it is, and for how cheap it was, they had to do it. Also, it's kind of cool. I wanted to mention this. You're constantly hearing news stuff like on their radio, and people that are giving like people who lent their voices. Stephen King is like a religious guy on the radio. Guillermo del Toro, Simon Pegg of Shaun of the Dead, Quentin Tarantino, and Wes Craven both have parts. I couldn't catch them, and on the special feature where you get to hear them and like all the audio recordings. Craven and Tarantino's weren't on there for some reason, but I just wanted to point that out. So yeah, definitely a weaker point of the series. Definitely not the worst. Also, you know, a lot of people were surprised when this came out because he used to do one every decade. 68, 78, 85, nothing in the 90s. This came out in 2005, and then this came out 2 years later. So you're like, holy shit, we get two that close? But again, it's not that great. It's not as terrible as I remembered it. So I guess it would be like a mild rant. But yeah, for Room 237, that is Diary of the Dead.